A lot of my research focuses on issues of class in American literature, and the guiding question that motivates a lot of my research is, why is the American welfare state so anemic, and what can American literature tell us about the relative smallness of the American welfare state in comparison with that of virtually every other developed country in the world? My new project looks at the emergence of the idea of the underclass in post-World War II American fiction and public discourse. Now, the idea of the underclass first started to become prominent in the 1970s through the 1990s. And in that period, you found a lot of American politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, using this term to refer to the American lower class, and especially to lower class people of color, to minorities of various sorts. And they used the term to demonize lower class minorities, lower class African Americans, lower class Latinos and Latinas. And they appealed to middle class voters by using this term, and they use it to start to whittle away the welfare state, eventually turning it into what a lot of theorists have called the American workfare or prison fare state. In my project, I trace this idea back to the 1950s and the 1960s. I look at a lot of the social scientists of the period, liberal social scientists like Daniel P. Moynihan, Michael Harrington, Oscar Lewis, and others, but because I'm a literary critic, I'm mainly interested in the writers of the period. And I focus on two groups of writers. First of all, I look at a lot of the white countercultural writers of the 1950s and 1960s, writers like Jack Kerouac and Norman Mailer. And these writers were drawing on a kind of racist romanticism in their work. They were fascinated by lower class minorities. They were fascinated by African Americans and by Latinos and Latinas, and they imagined, in a very racist sense, that minorities were kind of closer to their instincts than repressed middle class white Americans. And in developing this conception, which shaped their fiction in profound ways, these writers were echoing a lot of the social scientists of the period, and they're helping develop a lot of the ideas about the underclass that helped eventually shape what was known as the War on Poverty, which was the major effort on the part of the US government to expand the welfare state in the 1960s. At the same time, I also look at a lot of the minority writers from the period. I'm especially interested in writers who actually drew funding from War on Poverty programs, writers who were reliant upon federal funding to produce their work. And so, for instance, I look at the work of Amiri Baraka, who was a playwright who founded the Black Arts Theater in Harlem, using federal money. And I also look at the Chicano activist lawyer and writer Oscar Zeta Acosta, who was working for the Legal Services Program, again being funded by the federal government. And these writers imagined themselves to be radical separatists. Baraka in his plays would dramatize, using federal funding, the deaths of liberal whites and assimilationist blacks. And Oscar Zeta Acosta was actually involved, if we believe his memoirs, in acts of domestic terrorism. Nevertheless, these writers, even as they responded to and tried to challenge a lot of the dominant representations of class and race from their period, also drew on a lot of those ideas. So ultimately, I'm interested in how a lot of ideas that shaped government also shaped minority literature from the 1960s through to the present day.